So we will continue our discussion about the database annotations, right? The data annotation attributes. Today we'll complete data annotation, and tomorrow we are going to start Fluent API validations, right? So let us start today's session, database generated attribute. So before starting this database generated attribute, right? So in how many ways we can insert data into a database, right? Suppose, tell me guys, if I'm having any identity column, if I'm having any identity column, so what will happen? So identity column means what? Means when we are creating, whenever we are adding some new data, I'm executing some insert statement. Do you think that that column value is automatically going to be filled with some value? Is that the meaning of identity column in SQL Server? Means automatically the data is going to be provided by the database. Am I right?
Yes.
But when we are performing the insert operation or update operation or a delete operation. So in this case, automatically the data is going to be provided by, right? Automatically data provided by database,
Inserting.
and it is going to be performed when we are going to execute some insert statement. Clear? What do you mean by computed column? Do I need to provide the value for the computed column manually?
No.
Guys, tell me. So again, this column value are automatically going to be provided when we are performing the insert and a
Insert or update operations.
update operations. But in this case, the value is going to be calculated, right, based on the value of other column, right? Value depend on other column values. Am I right? For example, other column values,
Yes, sir.
you can provide some fixed values also. You can provide some dynamic values also. Am I right? For example, right? Dynamic values. For example, if I'm having one column, right, price and quantity, then I'm having one column, right? One column is for price, another column is for quantity, another column is for total price. Then can I create that total price as a computed column, which is going to store the value, right, of a price multiplied by quantity?
Yes, sir.
So in that case, whenever I'm inserting some data into the table, or either whenever I'm updating the data, so whatever value I have provided for the price and quantity column, that value, right, that total price column is automatically going to be stored the data. For example, I'm having one column, right, created by, so is it possible that whenever I'm going to insert, right, whenever I'm going to insert some data, if the data is not provided for the created by column, then by default, please take system or admin, right, whatever some right fixed value as the default value for that column. Is that possible?
Yes, sir.
Right? For example, we are having one created on column, right? Created on column. So in that case, can I specify that whenever the data is going to be inserted or updated, right? Please take the current system date time as the default value if no other values are provided.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? So
Using
these things, right? All these things are we are right for this truth for this type of scenario. The value is going to be automatically calculated. Whether you are using identity column or computed column, the value are going to be provided automatically. Identity means when we are performing the insert operation. Computed means right whenever we are performing the insert and update operation, the value depend on other factors. Other factors like right, you can calculate the value based on other columns. You can provide some fixed values. You can also provide some dynamic values. And for the rest of the column, or you can say normal column. So what we need to do for normal columns, we need to provide the value manually, right? We need to provide the value manually, right? Clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Clear.
right?
Yes,
So
sir.
these are the different ways, right, which we can use to insert some data into our database table or not. Yes or no? Have you ever worked with all these kind of scenarios or not? So this is very
Yes,
fine,
sir.
right? First name, last name is there. You have to provide the value explicitly. Identity column, definitely you are working with identity columm, primary column, right? The integer type, automatically that column value is going to be provided by the database. Computed column also you can set some default value or you can set the values which is going to be calculated based on other columns value. Normal column you are working with very frequently, right? That's fine. If I want to achieve the same thing using entity framework code, how I can do this? How to achieve the same thing using entity framework code, right? So now it is the question. See, if I'm creating the database, right, I can manage all these things. I can create the primary key column as identity. I can define the computed column. I can provide some right fixed values, right, or default value. You can instead of saying fixed values, right, you can say these are the default values which is going to be take if we are not providing any value. That is fine. But if I want to achieve the same thing, right, using entity framework code, then how I can do this? So for this purpose, right, what I need to do is I need to use this database generated attribute. So this database generated attribute I need to use, and this database attribute generated attribute, right? It provides one enum, right? Let me also give you the name of that enum. That enum name is going to be this one, and this enum is having three values. One is non, another one is identity, another one is computed. So now, if you want to mark a column as identity column, then you have to use this database generated attribute. And this database generated attribute constructor takes one enum, and that enum is nothing but your database generation option. And this enum is having three values: non-identity and computed. If you want to mark a property as identity column, and guys remember, identity can only be applicable of an integer, either integer or big int kind of a data type. You can only apply this identity column. Then that property, what we marked with the database generated option identity, will be created as a identity column in the database. And for that identity column, we do not need to provide any value explicitly from our application. That value is going to be automatically managed by the database. Similarly, if I don't want to generate any value manually, right? So now my requirement, I want to send the value explicitly. I don't want the database to generate or provide any value automatically. Then in that case, I need to decorate that property, right, with the database generated option.non. Similarly, if I want to mark any property as computed, that means that column is going to be created as a computed column in the database. And in that case, right, if I want to make sure that the value is going to be generated based on the values of other columns, or it can be some having some fixed value, then in that case, right, I can go with this computed option, database generated option dot computed. Now, if you look at this option, right, if you look at this picture, so you can see this database generated attribute, it is a class, and this class having only one right constructor, which is taking database generated option enum. And if you go to the database generated option, you will see it is a enum having three values: non, identity, and a computed. Non means what? The database doesn't generate values. Means what? Means as a developer, as our application, right, we should provide the value explicitly. Inserted means what? The database generate a value when a row is inserted, not at the time of updation operation. Only when we are inserting a row using the insert SQL statement, at that time the value is going to be provided automatically by the database. Computed means what? Again, this is similar to identity, but in this case, right, the value is going to be inserted as well as updated. Means what? Database will automatically generate a value either when we are inserting a record or whenever we are updating a record. Clear?
Okay, sir.
Right? So these are the different database options, and that's what we need to use, right? So let us try to understand this thing, right, with a real-time example, right? Because, right, so when to use identity, when to use non, when to use, right, what I can say, computer. Let us try to understand with one real-time scenario so that you will get the clarity. So clarity in the sense, right, you should know when to use what options and how to use them, right? So for this purpose, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, right, one, right, what I can say, one application, right? Inside that application, we are going to create these four entities: product, customer, order, and order item. So let me first, okay, why I'm getting this? Okay, let me build the solution. Okay, build successful, right? Okay, so why I'm getting this warning? Let it be there. Let me first delete, remove all these database objects, and we will create the new one. Okay. So let me first create the product entity. And while I'm creating the entity, I will explain, right, what is the use. Okay. Now, now you can see, right, I have used a few of the attribute right now. Now, what is my requirement? My requirement, product ID is not going to be my identity column. My requirement, product ID is not going to be identity column. This is going to be my GUID. Getting my point, guys? So the product ID, it is going to be my GUID. GUID means global unique identifier. And right, many people are working, right? They are working professional. They might be know. Most of the time, not most of the time, in many times, right? We are using GUID as the primary key. Am I right? Anyone here who use GUID as the primary key?
Yes, sir.
Right? Why? Because it is going to give a unique value throughout the database system. If I'm having multiple databases, each database is having different tables, then if I'm using a GUID, then you will not find the same value in any of the database table. Every time, irrespective, right, of the database and irrespective of the database table, it is going to be unique. Now, so in this case, what I'm doing, I'm using GUID, and here I'm explicitly specifying by default. See, by default, if I'm using a GUID, then it is not going to be identity column. But here explicitly, I'm marking that this product ID column is going to be my primary key. So if I'm decorating this key attribute means definitely it is going to be my primary key, but this primary key is without the identity column, right? Now what is my requirement? My requirement is to generate the SKU, right, of the product, stock, right, keeping unit. So this SKU, it is going to be unique. And what is the how we are going to create the product SKU? This is our business requirement. The product SKU is going to be PROD and whatever the category of the product and whatever the serial number. So based on these three things combining together, I'm going to create the SKU, right? So for this purpose, what I'm doing here, you can see now, in this case, the serial number, right, it is the integer type, or you can say, okay, let me make this as a big int, not big int. So here we don't have that big int. So here what is long data type is there, right? So this is going to be big int in the database, right? So now you just tell me. So in this case, what is the difference between a product ID and the serial number? Product ID is my primary key. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Is the product ID going to my identity column? Yes or no?
No.
Serial number is my primary key. Yes or no?
No.
No.
Is the serial number going to my identity column?
Yes.
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 So in this case, what it means product ID value, am I need to provide explicitly?
Yeah,
Do I
we
need to
need to
provide
write the
serial
manual.
number? And in this case, product ID value we need to provide manually. Am I need to
Yeah,
provide serial
but
number?
in serial number,
Get
we no
done.
need to write manually, automatically generated.
Exactly. So in this case, if you want to generate a primary key that is not going to be identity, in that case, you need to use this database generated option non. Non means what? Explicitly it will take the value. Doesn't matter whether it is a primary key or non-primary key. If I'm decorating any right integer type data type with the identity option, then what will happen? It is going to be the identity column, and the value for this column is going to be generated automatically. And again, I'm taking the name, I'm taking the category, I'm taking the price, I'm taking the quantity. And here, SKU, you can see I'm specifying computed. Computed means you can see database generated option that is computed. Computed means it is going to be a computed column. And for this created on and created by, we need to provide some default values. Now, if you look at these things, so here we declare this computed column. This is going to be a computed property. But did we specify how this property value is going to be generated? Here we are saying we are
No.
going to take some default value. But did you specify what value it should take as the default value?
No.
So these things we need to configure within our EAP core DB context class. Clear? So in this case, I have applied the non database generated option non means the value we need to provide explicitly. I will specify the identity column on the integer data types. That means what the value for this column. Okay, let's make this as integer. That is also more than sufficient. So this column value is going to be generated automatically. I mean database will provide this value automatically. SKU, this is my computed column, which is going to be the combination of this hard-coded PROD and whatever the category value I provided and whatever the serial number that is going to be generated by the what I can say database. By combining these three things, my SKU is going to be generated. And this created by, this is created on some dynamic fixed value here, right? What I can say dynamic value we are going to take, dynamic value in the sense, whatever the current date time, and created by, we need to provide some fixed value. How to provide the values for these three columns, we will discuss later. But for now, we have created this product entity with three options. One is using database generated non, database generated option identity, and computed. Anyone having any question? What is the use of this database generated attribute and whatever all, right? What are all these options? Anyone having any question, they can ask.
Like I have a doubt computed.
Yes. See, computed means what? We just mark this is going to be a computed column. The value for this column is going to be computed by the database, right, based on the other values what we provided. How this value is going to be provided, that logic we have not yet written. We'll write this logic, right? How to provide the value like this, we'll write that logic. For now, this is just a computed column. Do you have any idea related to computed column in database?
Yes, sir, I have.
Then, right? So at this point of time, just consider this is a computed column. But what value it is going to store, how it is going to store, not only this computed column, but also this created on and created by. All these things I'm going to discuss in some time. For now, this is just a column, computed column. This is my identity column, and this is just a primary key without identity. Clear?
Yeah,
Clear?
Okay.
yes, sir.
Next. Right, so whatever I have explained, this thing I have also provided here. Next one is the customer entity. Let me go ahead and create the customer entity. So I'm going to make this example complexity, right, so that you will get the clarity. Clarity is important. That is the reason why. Now in this case, this is my customer ID. And right, if I do not write these two statements, right, then also it is going to be my primary key and the identity column by default. By default, this is going to be my primary key and the identity column. Even if it is by default, we can also specify the same thing explicitly. How? I need to decorate this with the key attribute, which will mark this is going to my primary key. And also I can decorate this as identity column so that it is also going to be the identity column. And here, right, you can see I'm specifying the customer name, email, and phone number. And one customer can place multiple orders. Clear? Next, what I need to do, I need to generate the order entity. Let me go ahead and create another class file. So this is going to be my order entity. Right, see, again, so this is going to be my primary key. And again, this is going to be my, what I can say, identity column. So this is the total amount, order date, status. Right, so we can have multiple status. Let's see, by default we want to store the status as pending. How to store this by default pending status, we'll see. And here customer ID is going to be the foreign key, and the related navigation property is going to be customer. And right, one order can have multiple order items, right? So this is going to be my navigation property, using which I can access all the related order of a particular all the related order item of a particular order. So next, what I need to do, I need to create the order item entity. Let me copy, let me create a new class file. This is my order item entity. And inside this order item entity, we are going to use also computed column, right? So what computed column we are going to use? See, this is going to be my, see, in this case, I didn't specify key and identity. So that doesn't mean it is not going to be my primary key or identity column. So as for the default naming convention, entity name plus ID satisfies. So this is going to be my primary key as well as identity column. This is my foreign key pointing to the order entity. This is my foreign key pointing to the product entity. Now, in this case, you will see, so for each order item, for that product ID, what is that quantity and what is that price? So current, right, how many quantity the user trying to book, what is the current price of that product? So based on these two column, I'm going to calculate the total price. So total price is nothing but, you can say, it is going to be a computed column, and this computed column is nothing but your quantity into price. How to do calculation, that computed column value we will see practically. Apart from this computed column, right, what we specify in the order item entity, right, what we specify for this default value for the status, and there is nothing right, nothing configuration in the customer. And in this case, these three properties, anything else is there? So we need to understand these things, right? How to generate the computed column value, and how we can provide the default value for this columns, like created on, created by default. What should be the order status, guys? Whenever I'm going to create an order, so what should be the order status? Guys, tell me.
Pending.
It should be in pending states, right?
Pending.
So that's how we are going to set that, what we need to understand. So for this
Sir,
purpose, let
one
me,
question.
yes,
Product
please.
class, you have created product ID as your primary key and serial number as identity. So will that there be composite primary key for product ID and serial number?
So am I specify, is there any composition?
No, that
See,
is not there.
see, in
Okay.
this case, this is GUID. GUID
Right.
means what? It is going to be generated by the system automatically. And this is the serial number, which I am going to provide explicitly. So there is no such way that I am providing both the values. If I'm providing both the values, in that case,
Okay,
I can
okay, got it.
pass primary key, composite. But in
Okay,
this case,
okay,
both are completely different together. Why I'm using the serial
uh,
number? Because I want to use this serial number to generate the product SKU,
okay, got it.
right?
Unique SKU.
Yes, yes. And one more thing, guys, here you can see that unique SKU I want to make as a unique, means the value whatever I'm going to provide for this SKU column and for this serial number, right? Even in this case, right? In this case, this serial number, it is going to be identity. But even though it is an identity, I'm also going to generate some kind of a unique constant, right? So this is the reason why you can see SKU and serial number, right? For both this column, I have generated some unique indexes. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So this is how, this is the syntax what we generally needs to write to generate the right unique. You can say index unique or non-unique. It is up to you. You can also specify a different name if you wish. But this is how we need to generate the indexes for the unique column. So that is fine. Next, what we need to do is we need to generate the right. We need to modify the context class. So in the context class, we need to specify how and what should be, right? How we are going to calculate the default values and all these things, right? Guys, give me 2 minutes. Okay, guys, right. One more thing I need to tell you here is we are going to discuss something called the Fluent API from tomorrow. But to understand Fluent API, I'm just giving you some introduction. So within the on model creating method, whatever configuration I'm doing here, this is nothing but you can consider Fluent API configuration. So if you remember, right, from day one, or whenever we are doing data annotation, at that time I have told you, right? So whatever we are achieving using data annotation, those things we can achieve using Fluent API, plus some advanced configuration which we can achieve using Fluent API, which is not possible using data annotations. So these are some of the concepts, right, which I'm currently discussing, which is possible using Fluent API, but not with a identity, right? So now let us try to understand. So using this model builder, this is the model builder dot entity method. So this is this entity method. What exactly this model builder dot entity method is saying? Now you want to configure any model object, or you can say any entity. Yes, I want to configure any entity. So what entity you want to configure? That entity you need to pass to this entity method as a generic type. So this entity method, it's a generic method. Using this entity method, right, we can configure any entity which we are registering inside our DB context class. So we can configure product, customer, order item, all these entities we can configure. So using the same entity method, this is the reason why they have made this entity method as a generic. So here you can say, I'm configuring the product entity, I'm configuring the order entity, I'm configuring the order item entity. That means this is a generic method. So to this generic method, whichever entity you want to configure, that entity you need to pass. So I just pass this product entity. Then on inside this product entity, there might be multiple properties like this. You can say product ID, serial number, name, category, price, quantity, many properties are there. So which property you want to configure? I want to configure the created on property. So for this created on property, what I'm doing here, I'm specifying has a default value SQL. So has a default value SQL means this is a SQL function, get date. It is a SQL function. So please generate this value whenever we are inserting a record into the product table, right? Whichever table that is mapped with the product on this created on column. So this statement will explicitly configure the product entity in the database that this table column is going to be inserted with the default get date value whenever we are inserting a record and if we are not providing any default value. Clear? Clear, guys?
Okay.
So whatever
Why can't
default
we?
value we have to send, that time we need to mention on model creating on that entity below the entity properties like this.
See, here we are specifying the get date function. Do you know this is a SQL function?
Yes.
So it means what?
Definitely.
Whenever the product entity, we are inserting some data into the products table, at that time, automatically this created on column is going to be filled with this getDate function. Whatever value this getDate function return, that is going to be stored inside this column value. Clear? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? Similarly, this created by, here you can see right? Here you need to observe two things, right? So this created by, again, I'm specifying system. Here also, this is the product entity created by, if I'm not providing any value, by default, please take system as the default value. Now, this is my order entity. In order entity also, order date is there. If you look at the order entity, order date is there, and the default value, the current date I want to store. Again, I have specified this get date function. And here in the order entity, you can say the status is pending. But here you have to remember one thing. So I have not used this has default value SQL, and I have only used a has default value. So what is the difference between these two functions? So here I'm using has default value SQL, and here I'm using has default value only. So what is the difference between these two methods? Can anybody tell me?
I think this is a
Oh,
pending is a
oh,
pure string, and this is a all SQL
function.
Sorry,
functions.
sorry. Can you repeat?
The has default value is a plain string as we consider, and has the default value SQL means this is a predefined SQL functions we can say.
So in this case also, I'm not specifying any
You will use the
predefined.
keyword of SQL.
Right? So the difference is that if I'm using this has default value SQL, well, in this case, right, if I'm inserting the data through my application using entity framework core, or even if I'm executing plain insert statement in the database, both of the time this default value will come into the picture. If I'm using has default value, then in this case, what will happen? Now, in this case, only when I'm executing the statement using entity framework core, at that time, entity framework core will set this default value. But at the same time, if I'm creating a order manually using insert statement in the database directly, at that time, this default value will not come into the picture, but these things will come into the picture. So the difference is that has default value SQL means it will set the default value right through our application if you are inserting the data, or even if we are inserting the data directly within the database. But if I'm using has default value, then in this case only when I'm sending the data from my application, at that time it will take this default value and it will store into the database. But if you are executing the insert statement directly in the database, and if you are not providing the status value, then it is not going to store the default value pending. Clear?
Okay, sir.
Right? So has default value SQL means both SQL and from our .NET Core application. Has default value means only from our .NET Core application. Clear, guys? Yes or no?
Yes, clear, sir.
Yes.
Right. Now, if you look at this product entity, we are having two computed column. So one is SKC. Point that what you need to guys remember, if you want to provide or set some default value, you have two options. You can go with the default value, has default value SQL or has default value. And similarly, for the computed column, you have to use has computed column SQL. So has computed column SQL means in this case, we do not have that flexibility to set the value right from our application. It is completely on the database side, right? So now let us try to understand. So for this SKU, what is our syntax? So what exactly we want to store? We want to store product hyphen this category dynamic value, whatever category we provided, whatever category that is going to serial number that is going to be generated by the system. Combining these three things together, I want to set the SKU. So that is what I'm doing here, right? So this is my product hard-coded string. String means I'm specifying using a single code, right? Then this is my SQL function. Cast category as an envarchar. So you guys, I hope you guys are know what is the use of a cast method. So basically, it will consider this, convert this into a string, and then I'm providing this a hyphen. Sorry, anyone saying anything? And then I need to provide this hyphen, right? So this hyphen I have provided as a string. Again, I'm taking this serial number column. So here the important point that what you need to remember, whatever the category and serial number you specified, they should exist on the database as a column. If you provide something else, you will get error. So while right, you will get error because these are not available. So if the column, category, and serial number are not available, then how they can generate the value? So this is our hard-coded string. And this category and serial number, they must and they should be exist in the products table. Similarly, we are having this order item, total price column, and it should be calculated based on the quantity and the price. And that is what I'm doing here. So in this case, right, if you look at this product entity, this SKU, it is a string. And this string combination of, right, many things, right, some hard-coded value, some string category, some integer, right, serial number. But in this case, this total price, it is a decimal, price is a decimal, and quantity is a decimal. So here, I need to convert this value to string? Guys, tell me.
No.
If I multiply quantity
no.
into price, so this value definitely it is going to be decimal value. So conversion is required or not?
No.
Not required. So that is what I'm doing here. As computed column, directly I specify whichever column properties value are going to be used to calculate the total price. That is quantity into price. Clear or not?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have just one question. Some of the things can we configure in our entity class itself, like with the
So,
get property?
sorry?
Like we are having properties in our entity class.
Mhm.
So can we configure like some like system
Yes,
or
yes.
pending all this thing?
Yeah, definitely. You can configure, no issue. For example, order status, right? So you can
Right.
set the value for pending here, no issue. Right? For
Okay.
example, you want to store pending, you can set here pending.
Okay.
That is absolutely fine. So this is the default value, right? Which is going to be right stored in the database. Clear? But this thing I can set here, but that is not possible, right? In the case of what I can say escape. So this is not a default value. This is a computed column. For default
Mm,
value, we can set the default value, whatever you want to store. But for computed column, for example, right, in this case, SKU, so this is not possible. Clear?
Price we can do, right? Price.
So how you can do the price?
Price is quantity into something, some computed column.
Okay,
Something was there. Total
right.
price, yeah. Total price we can do.
So you mean how I can specify this thing?
Quantity into price.
So can I access something like quantity into price here?
Yeah.
That is not default value.
So is this possible? Do you ever try something like this?
We
No, no.
can put it under
See,
that curly
first of
bracket, quantity into
first of all,
price.
you just need to remember that any logic, if you want to write, they must be inside a block, right? Any logic, if you want to execute, they must be inside a block. So in this case, so whatever statement I have written, this is logic.
Mm.
So logic means you cannot write directly assign anything. So
Right,
here
right,
we
right.
are assigning some
Get.
default value, right?
Mm,
Here this is a default value. We are not
mm,
executing any kind of a business logic. So I can directly assign. But in this case, if I'm doing that multiplication means plus, minus, all these things means it is completely your what I can say business logic. So business logic means you cannot set this value. And second thing, right, coming to your point, right, sir, can I write the setter statement, right,
mm,
set access,
right.
all these things? But how you will get the serial number value? So that is going to be generated in the database now. So this logic, whatever I'm going to write here, it is going to be executed on my application only, not on the database. So whatever getter and setter we define, do you think that that logic is going to be executed on the database?
Mm,
No, sir.
No. Definitely the answer is no. So whatever value we stored on this column or on this column, that will be sent to the database. And that value is going to be calculated on the client side by executing the set accessor. So in the set accessor, if I'm executing, then how I will get the serial number value, which is going to be generated on the database. So computed column means
mm.
they are going to be generated on the database end only, not on our application. Default value we
And,
can set in our application or they can be set by the database. But computed
and
identity, they are going to be generated on the database side only, not on our application.
total
Clear?
price also we cannot do total price.
So how you can do the total price? So how you can do this? So in this case, you are seeing this total price and quantity. But what about, right, if they are allowing you to define the logic here for the computed column, Then in this case, see, in this case, you can see this quantity and the total price is there. But what about this scenario?
This we cannot do.
So if they are
SKU we
allowing,
cannot do.
if they are allowing you to calculate the computed column value on the client side, then why they are going to restrict other cases?
Mm. Okay.
Right? So they are not going to define that you are not going to depend on the database side value. So I'm allowing you. If you are depending, no, I'm not allowing. So they are not going to decide what you are going to do. So they are generic. Generic means anything which is going to be computed on the database means they are going to be computed on the database side. Right? For example, okay, let me give you another scenario. So in this case, you know that is this quantity and price I can set here. But as I mentioned, one more thing, can I create this database column values directly by executing some insert statement on the database? Tell me, if I'm going
No,
to
sir.
insert some
No.
record into this table by taking the order ID. For example, I create one order ID, I got the order ID column value. By taking this order ID, can I insert some data into this order item table? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, we
yes.
can insert.
At that time, I'm providing the quantity and price. Then how this total price column is going to be calculated on the database side? If I'm inserting the data manually using some insert statement.
Mm.
So we need to
How?
put the logic in database, no, sir?
So that is the reason why computed column means they are going to be
From
calculated on the database, not on the client
database.
side.
Mm.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is the reason why they are providing restrictions. So you cannot decide, right, how the logic is going to be executed on the client side. So you can define the logic, but they should and they must be executed on the database side. And that is the reason why we are using this option. So using this option means they are going to be created as computed column, and the logic is this. How that computed column value is going to be calculated, that is the logic. How this computed column value is going to be calculated, this is the logic, and these are default value. And guys, remember, default value and computed column value both are two different things. So default value you can set, right, using your application logic. But computed means what? Default value means what? See, default value, if I'm providing the value, take the provided value. If I'm not providing the value, then take the default value. But in the case of a computed column, there is no such options available. So for example, I cannot specify the SKU value manually. I cannot specify the total price column manually. So in that case, order date I can specify, or it if I'm not specifying, then it will take the get date function, what is the current date as the default value. But this is not possible. Clear?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Clear? Anyone having any more question, guys? Okay. Right. So let us modify this program class and see, right, whether it is taking the data as expected or not. Right. So .NET 9 released. Have anyone tried? Today I only installed .NET 9. Okay. Okay. So here, right, I'm creating the context object. So this is context.database that ensure deleted and context.database ensure created. So in this case, what this first statement is going to do, it is going to delete the existing database, and again it is going to create a new database based on the configuration what we provided in the EF core DB context class. So what is the why I'm using this thing? Because I don't need to generate the migration, update the migration. So I don't need all those things, right, again and again for testing purpose. That is the reason why I have written this two statement, and these two statement only for development purpose, not on the production. If you write this statement on the production, what will happen? You will be fired, right?
Yes, sir.
Why you will be fired? Because you are deleting the database, right?
Deleting the database from production server.
Right. Production server means it is a very right,
Important,
right,
very important, or
very
backbone of a company.
right. So data is important. If you lost the application, that's fine. If you lost the data, that is a very difficult thing to right handle. Okay. So this is right what I'm doing here. I'm creating one product object. And if you look at this product table, right, I'm not going to provide the SKU created on and created by. So if you look at this program class, I'm providing the product ID, name, category, price, and quantity. But the SKU, the created on, created by, they are going to be created with some calculated or computed column or some default
Auto
value. Right. So in this case, product ID, it is going to be GUID. So how to generate a GUID? GUID.new GUID. So it is going to generate a unique identifier, right? So then what I'm doing here, I'm adding that product to the context object. Again, I'm creating a customer. So in the customer entity, you can see customer ID, which is going to be auto-generated, name, email, and phone number. These three things I need to provide. And guys, remember those those navigation properties, those are not required, right? While I'm adding an entity. So this navigation property help us to fetch the data, right? So in this case, you can see name, email, and phone number I have provided. So in this case, there is no serial number. Customer ID is a computed column. So in this case, customer ID is going to my computed column, right? So this is my computed column. And then I'm adding this customer into the context object, and then I'm calling the step changes. So once I call the step changes, then what will happen? Now one product with this product ID is going to be created, and one customer with the customer ID, one is going to be created. And those are updated value I can also access using this product and a customer object. That is the benefit of using, right, what I can say, entity framework code. So once the customer ID and the product ID are generated, customer ID and the product ID are generated, now I can create an order. So for creating an order, what are the information I need to provide? So by looking at this table, can anybody tell me what are the information I need to provide?
Customer ID and order items.
And ordered ID.
The total amount, customer ID, and the order item. So these
Order
things we
ID.
need to provide, right? Order date, this will be set to default current date. Status, this will be your default right pending status, right? And this is order ID. So you can go with this option. Otherwise, right? Okay, so let me do one more thing. So I have provided that pending status here. Let me comment from here, right? So any option is fine. So we are providing, and this is going to my auto generated, right? So what I'm doing here, you can see I'm only providing the order ID and the total amount, and then I'm adding and I'm calling the step changes method. Why I'm doing this one? Because for the order items, right, what I need to do, I need the order ID, right? So this is the reason why. First, what I'm generating here, I'm generating the order ID. Once I insert this one, order ID will be generated, and then by taking the order ID, I'm going to generate the order, right? I'm going to create one order item. So how to, and for order item, what are the things I need to provide? Order ID I need to provide, product ID I need to provide, quantity I need to provide, price I need to provide, total price, this is going to be auto generated. So order ID, whatever order ID is created, product ID I have provided, that product ID what I have created here, product ID. Quantity I'm providing one, price I'm providing 1500, right? And then I'm calling the step changes method, adding that into the context object and calling the step changes method. Once this is done, then what I'm doing here, I'm accessing all the properties of all the entities to show that all the data are stored in the database as expected, right? So let me run the application and show you, right? And what is the category we have provided? ELECT. So what should be the SKU? SKU is going to be, guys, tell me. PROD,
PRD,
ELECT,
elect
Dash
serial
and
number.
one.
category.
And category and serial number in this
Dash
case, it
serial
is going to
number.
be one, right? Because that is auto-generated identity column. So let me run the application and show you the data. I'm not sure whether it will work or not. Okay, right? So product ID, you can see this is my GUID, name, laptop, serial number one. So SKU is going to be PROD, whatever your category, and right, and this is going to be my serial number. Created on, you can see, created by system. Customer, you can see customer ID, name equals to this, email, phone number. Order ID, you can see one, total amount of this, order date is equals to this. Status, is it taking the default value pending, which we set in the property? Yes. Order item, you can see one, order ID equals to one. product ID equals to this, quantity equals to 1, and total price equals to this one. If I set quantity as 2, then you will see the value as a 300, right? So let us also check this one, whether it is working fine or not. So okay, let me set the total price equals to 300. And here, let me set the price as quantity as 2. So with these changes, let me run the application one more time. Right? I'm getting the exact value total price. Whatever the quantity multiplied by total price. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right now. Now, if you verify the database, then you should see the computed columns and the default values. So this is my e-commerce DB. Right? So this is my product table. Open this create SQL statement. Right? So you can see this is my SKU. So how that SKU is generated? This is. Right? So this is how the SKU is generated. And also, right, you can see for the products for the right what I can say created on and created by, you can see the default value it also specify. But in this case, right, if you look at the order table, right, then you will see that default value pending. Let me open this one. Right, so in this case you can see order ID, but here you will not see that pending. The default order status, is there any pending value is provided?
No, sir.
Why it is not provided? Because in this case, when it is sending the data, it is setting right. It is sending the default value what we specify here. Right. If I'm using that right default value SQL, then you will see this one like this one. So here we are using this one. So that is the reason why this is provided. If you provided, that will be take. Otherwise, this one. Now, if you look at the order item, then you should also see the computed column. So what is that computed column? You can see total price as whatever the quantity and the price. Clear? Right? In this case, you can see product ID, it is not null, and the product ID is going to be my primary key, and serial number, it is going to be identity. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is how you need to work with, right? What I can say, these things. Okay. So now you guys clear when to use, right? Identity option, computed option, and a non-option. Anyone having any question? Clear or not?
Clear, sir.
Clear, sir. Clear.
So this is how you need to use in your application, right? So the next thing is very important. Guys, remember, so whatever we are going to discuss in today's session, these are very interesting things. Timestamp attribute. So before understanding timestamp attribute, can anybody tell me what do you mean by concurrency problem in database? And when it will come into picture? Right. For example, there are two user, or you can say user one, or you can say transaction one. Another user is there, user two, or you can say transaction, right? So let us first try to understand what do you mean by concurrency problem. And there is a table called a product table, and there is a column ID equals to 1, and the stock, let's say the stock quantity is 10. This is product ID, stock is 10. So now both this transaction, they read the same product ID. So if both the transaction read the same product ID, then what they will call read, right? Read the product ID, read product ID 1. So what they will get as the stock value will be? Guys, tell me.
9.
Participate.
9.
How 9?
Sorry. Currently,
Stock is
9. Currently 10. Okay.
Currently
Sorry.
10. Am I reduced
Yeah.
anything? This is my user 1,
No,
or you
no,
can
no,
say
no.
1,
Yes.
and this is my user 2 and the transaction 2. And at the same time, this transaction 2 or the user 2 also read the stock value. So what they will get?
They will also get 10.
Then
Current stock is 10.
now it is doing some processing, some internet issue or something else doing some processing, right? And here,
Yes.
what this transaction do? It right to place the order, and it is going to update the stock quantity. So it place an order of quantity to place an order of, right, what I can say, quantity 3. Quantity 3, right? It place an order of quantity 3. So if it place an order of quantity 3, then what you will do? It will update the product ID value quantity stock to product
7.
ID to 1. After updation, then what will be the stock value at this point of time? The stock equals to whatever the current stock minus 3. So it
7.
will
Yes.
value as 7,
7.
right? Because in this case, this right, whatever the context object we read, that value it shows then 10 minus 3 means it is going to be same. Once this transaction is completed, this transaction now processing, right, place an order of quantity 7. Let us quantity, right? It place an order of quantity 7. So if it place an order of quantity 7, then what he will do? He will also update the stock quantity. So what will it read? 10. And now it is going to place an order of 7. So it will update the stock quantity as 3. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right. So after the processing of both the transaction, what will be the current stock? It is going to be 3.
3.
Right. So but according to our logic, what should be the actual stock?
0.
0.
0. That means, am I getting the actual stock what should be in the database?
No.
No.
So this is nothing but your concurrency problem. So what will happen in this case? Now when both transactions read the same data and one transaction is silently overriding the object done by the other transaction, then we will face the concurrency problem. Clear or not? I'll show you. So whatever example I am showing in this right, screen, I'll show you picture quality, right? It's same example. I'm going to show you, and you will see that quantity is going to be 3. Right? Quantity is going to be 0. Right? So if you want to overcome this concurrency problem, right, then what I can do is I can go with a timestamp attribute. I can also go with a concurrency attribute. So we can go with the timestamp attribute and we can go with the concurrency attribute. Two options are there which we can use to overcome the concurrency problem. So let us try to understand this concurrency problem with right uh, right. First of all, let us try to understand this problem, and then I will show you how you can overcome the problem using the timestamp attribute. What exactly the timestamp attribute? So let us first to understand this example. Then I will show you this thing, right? So for this purpose, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make use of this product entity. So product entity is already there. Let me go ahead and replace the code. So this is my product ID, name, price, and stock quantity. So this is my product entity. So let me, product entity is there. Let me set up the, right, what I can say, database. Guys, remember this concurrency is very important, right? Whenever you are developing the real-time applications, right? So here you can see this is my e-commerce DB. And here what I'm doing, I'm adding some default data, or you can say seed data. So again, so to this product data, right, model builder that entity. So I'm configuring the product entity to have some data when the migration is going to be done. At that time, it is going to insert three records to the products table. That what I have also specified, that it is also going to create a table with the name products, which is going to be mapped with my product entity, right? So that is fine. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to generate the migration. So for generating the migration, right, what command guys I need to write. So before that I need to remove this thing. Otherwise I will not be able to compile the application. So let me first remove this thing. So generate the migration file. Okay, this is our migration MIG1 update database. Okay, so I'm getting one error that is saying this table is already exist because in the e-commerce DB, we have already this e-commerce DB in the database and having this table. So let me remove that database altogether and let me remove this right again. Let me execute the update database command. This time it should execute. Yes. So database command is executed. Now you can verify the database. You should have the table with the quantity, right? 10. So this is my database. This is my table. And inside this table, you should see the product quantity as, right, whatever. So let's take the example of product ID 3, the stock quantity as 3. Now, now what I'm going to do, whatever example I have given, let us do the same thing. Suppose there are two users trying to place an order with the same product simultaneously, and it makes sense, right? So if you, whenever a new mobile phone launch, right, or any some product launch into any right e-commerce website, at the same time, right, many users they are going to book the product, right? Or you can say they are going to place the order. So in this case, first of all, user A fetches the product laptop. Let laptop means a product with ID 1 and from the database and see the stock quantity as 10. So it see that for this laptop product, the stock quantity as 10. User B also fetch the same product data and also see the stock is 10, right? So both are fetching the same product. User A books 3 units. So user A books 3 units and update the stock quantity to 7 in the database. And user B, right? So what exactly happening? So this user B, he is unaware about these updates. He doesn't have any idea that in between my read, another user updates the data in the database. So in this case, as he is not aware about this update statement, so what exactly he is going to do? He is placing an order of 7 units. So silently, he will update the stock quantity to 3. So let us try to understand this in this example. So ideally, what should be the actual value? Actual value and final value. In this case, in the database is going to be 3. However, the actual product value should be 0. If not 0, means there is some, right, what I can say, concurrency issues, right? So let us proceed and understand this thing. So for this purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use multi-threading because I cannot run the application using, right, what I can say, in a right, in a web application kind of environment. So to simulate the same scenario, right, that multiple request is going to be handled by application. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to generate two methods. One is method 1, another is method 2. Both this method are exactly going to do the same thing, right? So here you can see I'm creating the context object. I'm fetching the product ID by 1. So in this case, guys, remember whenever I'm using the find method, so whatever value I'm passing, that value is going to be filtered based on the primary key column. So in this case, this is going to find the product by ID. And whatever product ID I return, right? In this case, I'm just delaying the program execution by 2 seconds. And within this 2 seconds, transaction 2 will start. Transaction 2 also going to read the data from the database. And he also find the product with ID 10. And in this case, right, what exactly it is going to do? It is going to do some processing. And for doing the processing, it sleeps for 5 seconds, right? And within that time period, right, up to 2 seconds, this tray will resume its work. And he find that product is not equals to null. I place the order of quantity, right? Whatever quantity you can see here, you can see I have set the quantity user A quantity equals to 3, user B quantity equals to 7. So in this case, whatever the stock quantity of user A, that what I'm reducing from the stock quantity of the products table, and then I'm calling the step changes method. And after the step changes method, I'm displaying how many products the user has booked, and after the order placed, how many stock quantities are there in the database. That is what I am displaying here. And once this operation is done, after 5 seconds, right, this thread will come into the picture. And again, he is going to update the user B quantity. So user B quantity, what value we have set? 7. So in this case, whatever value it read 10. 10 minus 7 means it is going to update the stock quantity as a 3 in the database. So that is what you can see. And here, right, what I'm doing here from the main method, this is my initial stock, which is 0. I just created a variable to hold the initial stock. And then what I'm doing here, I'm calling the context object find method. And whatever value I return, that value I'm storing here. If this value is not available, storing 0. So here I'm printing that the initial stock for the product laptop or product, whatever product ID is equivalent to the value what is available in the database. Right? Once I print the initial stock, then what I'm doing here, I'm creating two threads. And you know, guys, how to create the thread. So this thread means in this case, I'm passing method 1. So whatever method I'm passing, that method signature should and must be similar to, right, must be similar to the request delegate that this thread is expecting. This thread is expecting a request delegate which return type is void, and that method doesn't take any parameter. If you go to the definition, right, so it is taking the thread start delegate. And if you go to the thread start delegate signature, then what exactly it is saying? It is saying that the method what it can execute, that method return type is going to be void, and that method doesn't take any parameter, right? Now, if you look at my method 1 and method 2, are they following the same signature what the right this thread constructor expect? Yes, because the return type is going to be void and it doesn't take any parameter, right? So once I pass these two things, then I execute these two method, right, by executing the thread.start method. So once I call the thread.start, then whichever method is referenced by this T1 thread, that is going to execute, and at the same time T2 is also going to execute the method 2. Both are going to be executed sequence, right, parallelly. Why? Because they are going to be executed by different threads. And to make sure that these two threads execution completed, then only I execute the next statement. I'm calling this join method, so which will block, right? Can anybody tell me if I'm calling this T1.join or T2.join, what will happen? So once I call this T1.join, what will happen? Yes, tell
No
me.
idea, sir.
Sorry, no idea.
No idea, sir, about that.
You should know thread. Until and unless you are not right, you do not understand thread concept. I will become. Say, just tell me which main thread is executing my application code. Yes or no?
Yes,
Operating system
main
Yes.
thread
method.
is
Yes, yes.
responsible for executing the application code. So then, in this case, one thread is executing my application code. Then this method 1, it is going to be executed by another thread. This method 2, it is going to be executed by a different thread. So now when I call the T1.join method, so at this point of time, my main thread blocked. My main thread blocked means he will not execute the
Main
next
method.
step. My main method. So T2.join means what? So whichever method is referenced by T2 thread, that is method 2, until and unless this method execution is not completed, the main method cannot proceed further and execute the rest of the statement. So at this point means so T1.join, T2.join means what? Means whatever the method they are referencing to. Once both this method execution are completed, then only it will proceed further and execute rest of the statement. Clear? So whatever the
Yeah.
in asynchronous programming, whatever the await method is doing, the same thing is done by this one. In that case, what will happen? In the case of a await method, it is release the thread so that the thread is going to handle, right, some other task. In this case, they are simply blocking the main thread. The main thread cannot do anything special. So once the both the method are completed their execution, then again what I'm doing, I'm fetching the data from the database. I want to fetch the current data from the database. And then I'm doing here one operation initial stock minus whatever the user A quantity plus whatever the user B quantity, that is going to be my expected final stock. For example, initially 10 record right stock was 10 laptops were there. User A placed 3 laptop, user B placed 7 laptop, 7 plus 3 10. Initial stock 10 means expected output is going to be 0. But in this case, what I'm doing here, right? That is what expected output I'm printing here. That is the expected final stock. And whatever the final stock in the database, that is what I'm printing here. And then I'm checking whether this stock quantity, whatever in the database, is similar to this expected stock quantity or not. If both are the same, that means the final stock is correct. Otherwise, there is some concurrency issue. Right? That is what I need to display. Right. So now let me run the application and see whether it is working fine or not. So initially 10 booking user A, both are started booking. User A booked for 7 quantity, user B booked for 3 quantity. Final stock in the database 3. Expected stock quantity is going to be 0. So there is some conflict. There is a concurrency issue. Clear or not? Yes or no?
Okay, sir.
Clear or not? So this is called
Clear,
concurrency issue.
clear, sir.
Sometimes what happens, you develop the application, you host the application, and whenever you are performing the operation on your machine one by one, you see the database data is correct. But when you deploy the application into the production, and then there is some misconfiguration, mismatch of the data, the counter not matching. Why? Because of this concurrency issue. Because of the poor coding of our, poor designing of our database, poor coding of our application code. Because of this issue, you may get this kind of a conflict. Yes, if the if the operation are done sequentially, first user one, then user B, then user C, you will not face this issue. But if multiple users trying to access the same data at the same time, then you will face this kind of issues. Clear or not? Okay. Now, if this is the scenario, right? As you guys are not, right, what I can say, pressure. Many of you guys are working professional. How you can handle this scenario? I'm asking this question to you guys.
Through
By
time based.
locking the table when
So
one
do you
user is
think
doing.
do you think that if I'm going to lock the database table, my performance will be improved?
Transactions.
Transaction means what? Here I'm also using the transaction now.
Before second booking, we need to confirm based on the date time.
So do you think that do I need to access the data again and again?
Okay.
Right? So whatever you are giving the solution, I'm also right. Suppose this kind of scenario will be given to you in the interview. This is my scenario, and this is what happening, and I want to manage this thing. What is the best solution, or what are the different solutions? So whatever solution you guys are giving, that is not performance optimized. Right? I cannot use the log to completely log the database. Completely it will degrade your application performance because we are not designing the application for a single user. Multiple user going to access the database. I cannot
We,
access the database data again and again. Right? Why should I access right again and again for checking one more time, for updating one more time? This is not what I'm expecting. Right? So the
We,
interview might
we,
be
we
whatever
can
solution
do.
you are giving. I cannot say that this is not going to work. It will work 100%. It will work, but it is not performance optimized.
got it.
You can implement
We
log. You
can
can
do
see.
that isolation thing, committed, uncommitted, something.
Yes, that is also possible. Commented and uncommented is also possible. But how that isolation is going to work? Right? So that concurrency issues, right? What I'm doing here, let us try to understand. So for this purpose, right, what we need to use? We need to use concurrency, or we need to use some concurrency solution. Right? So one of the solution is timestamp, another solution is in concurrency. Let us try to understand. Right? So for to avoid this kind of situations, right, what I can do is I can create a property of type byte array, and I need to decorate that property with a timestamp attribute. Let me get this one. So public. So I need to create one property of a byte array, Any name you can give, but let's give this name as row version, right? And let me decorate this red property with a timestamp attribute. Right, so let me decorate this one with a timestamp. So guys, remember, this timestamp attribute is going to create a timestamp column in the database. So this value is going to be automatically, this column value automatically set when we insert and update the record. So whenever I'm going to create a new entry, this column value is going to be set automatically. Whenever I'm going to update the record of that entity, right, I'm going to update some of the column of that entity. Also, this value is going to be updated. So automatically, so like this identity column means what? That is going to be inserted only when inserting a new data, right? But in this case, this is not related to identity, but you can consider this is a GUID or some kind of value you can consider, which is going to be set every time you insert and update the data into the table. For each record, it is going to create some unique value. And this value, what it is going to create, that it will use while it is updating the data into the database. Let us try to understand this thing. So now when I read the data, so now along with this stock quantity 10, I'm having this row version. Let's see the value is RB1. So when I read the product ID 1, it is also going to read this RB1, yes or no? Again, I'm reading this one. Yes, it is also going to load RB1, row version 1. Clear? Till now, clear?
Yes, sir.
So if I'm inserting one record, means that the column value is going to be inserted automatically. It means this row version 1 is already there in the database. I do not need to provide the value explicitly, similar to your identity column. But in this case, identity only going to be generated when we are inserting. But this column value is going to be inserted, right? It is going to be updated every time we update the data. It is going to created when we insert. It is also going to update when we update, right? So now I'm doing some processing, and I'm placing one order. So while I'm placing the order, right, stock quantity, so it is going to update the product stock quantity, but also, right, so it is going to update the stock quantity to 3. But in this case, what exactly it is doing? So currently what it is using update stock equals to 3. Where currently what is the SQL statement it is generating? It is generating something, the update, whatever your products table, update products set stock equals to 3 where product ID equals to this. So this is the statement currently is executing or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So in this case, it is placing the value as 7, right? So whatever, right? So it is setting something like this. Now once we have this row version column, and once this value is stored in the database, now in the where clause also it is going to use the same thing, and row version equals to this one. So whatever row version it read, that value it is also going to use in the where clause condition. Clear? So if I'm using some timestamp column in the database, so whenever I'm performing the update and delete operations, along with the where clause condition, that is the primary key or something else, it is also going to use the row version column in the where clause. Now at this point of time, forget about user to transaction. Is this condition is going to execute?
Yes.
So where product ID equals to 1, is there any column in the database which product ID equals to 1? Yes or no? Just tell
Yes,
me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there any,
yes, we have
is there,
product ID.
okay, for that product ID 1, is the row version column value is RB1?
Yeah,
As both conditions are satisfied, then only it is going to update the stock to 3. So once this statement is executed, what will happen? So this is not only going to update the stock quantity to 3, it is also going to update this RB value 1 to something different RB
RB2.
value RB2, right? Now coming to this other this transaction. So now it is going to update the stock quantity. Again, it is going to use the same. So update stock equals to 7, where product ID equals to this, and this statement RP equals to 1, because it read the data, and when it read the product ID, at that time it read the row version 1 value is RP1. Now if I execute this statement, do you think that it is going to update the stock quantity? So
No.
now you just tell me the product ID 1 is having the row version RP1, or this value is updated by someone else?
RB2.
RP2 means this condition now satisfying or not?
No.
No satisfying.
Means if not satisfying, means what? This update statement is going to be failed. Yes or no?
Yes.
So if failed means whatever the stock value, that will be there in the database or not?
Hmm.
So this is how we can manage the concurrency problem by using row version. And this row version, what I have provided here, it can only be applied once in a entity. You cannot apply the timestamp attribute multiple times. It can only applied once within an entity, and it can only apply to a property of a binary type. Clear?
Hmm.
Right. So let us delete this migration folder, and let me delete this e-commerce DB database. Right. And let me write what I can say, create the what I can say migration file one more time. So let me go ahead, generate the migration file one more time. Image1, update the database. Okay. Now let me verify the database. Products table is there. So now you can see these are the data what I am maintaining. But apart from this data, there is something called row version or not. This is a unique value, right? Which is going to be unique throughout the system, similar to GOID, right? And this value is going to be inserted. I mean, every time you insert or update the column value, this is going to be updated. So now this is my row version, which is ending with 71, 72, and 73. Now let me modify the right what I can say program class to make this more interesting, right? So I'm going to give some right error statement. Right? If there is some error, so we need to handle that error. So that statement I'm going to write, because currently, okay. So let me. So the same example I'm doing, I'm just enhancing the example. I'm not doing anything special. So here the same user A quantity, user B quantity. I have created two variable here, private variable, to indicate whether the operation was successful or not. By default, this is false, means operation is false. And if the operation is successful, then we need to set this value to true, right? So this is my initial stock. This is my context object. I'm reading the initial stock and printing the same here. I'm creating the same, I'm calling the same two method using two different thread. This is my T1 start. This is my T1 join method. And here also I'm reading the actual right final, right? Once the operations are completed, what is the value, right? That final product value, that is what I'm reading. Expected final stock, right? Equals to initial stock, right? So what is this expected final stock? Right. So expected final stock means what? So whatever the initial stock we have set here, and whatever the operations have done, minus this and minus this, right? So what is the initial stock when I read the statement? Initial stock is going to be, guys tell me, 10, right? And this is my user 1 quantity, user 2 quantity. If user 1 successfully place the order, this property value is going to be true. If user B successfully place an order, then this value is going to be true. So initial rate, initial stock, initially it is going to be 10, and that is what I'm saying. So finally, expected final stock equals to initial stock I have set. Then what I'm doing here, expected final stock equals to user quantity, again user B quantity minus. See, in this case, what I'm checking, if user A operation completed successfully, then whatever the expected stock minus user quantity. If user B operation successfully completed, this is a Boolean value which will value might be true or false. If it is true, then only go ahead and deduct from the expected final stock. And finally, we are displaying expected final stock and final stock in the database. If both are same, then stock is correct. Otherwise, final stock is incorrect. So this is my method 1. And here what I'm doing, I'm writing the code inside a try block, try catch block. If the operation is successfully completed, the same logic I have written. If the operation completed successfully, we are setting that user A operation completed successfully. If there is some issue, then we are just printing that operation success is false. Same thing I'm doing with method 2. I'm updating this value to true when the operation completed successfully. Otherwise, it is going to be false when there is some error. So with these changes, now let me run the application. But before running the application, I want to make sure, right, what SQL statement are going to be generated. So for this purpose, what method I need to write, guys? Write option builder
Log
dot
2.
log 2. Here what I need to write, console dot
Right.
write line, and then Microsoft dot extension dot logging, right, log label.
Log level. What information?
Wait, what is that extension for this one? Using, guys, tell me. Microsoft dot
Extension dot logging.
Microsoft dot extension dot login. So what SQL statement it is generated? That is what I want to check. For that purpose, I'm writing this statement, right? So with these changes, let me run the application and see whether it is working as expected or not. Okay. What I'm getting. Okay. Now you can see this is my update statement. And in the update statement, you can see the product ID. So why I'm getting so much log? Because by mistake, we have set the log label as a debug. It should be information or something like this. So debug means every statement is written there. That's fine. So in this case, this is, you can see that it is setting the stock quantity, but in the where clause, along with this product ID, is it using the row version number? Yes or no? And in the second update statement, it is also using the same row number version or not? And finally, you can see the expected stock is 7, the final stock is 7. That means now if you check the database table, so for this product ID, you will see this row version is going to be updated and the stock quantity is also going to be updated to 7. So it should be 1, 2, 3 means next value is going to be 4. 4 and it is 7. So now the operation is working as expected without any concurrencies. Clear? Yes or no, guys? Clear or not?
So in this scenario, what user 2 has to do? He has to request once again.
In that case, what you need to do, you need to write the retry logic. If operation is failed, so in this case, you can see, you know how to implement retry pattern. Do you have any idea how to implement retry pattern? So in this case, what I'm
No, sir.
getting, right?
No,
So
I don't.
just to try to learn, right? So this is very interesting retry pattern. So in this case, right, what I'm doing, I'm getting some DB update exception, right? So in this case, what I can get, I can see DB concurrency exception, right? So if there is some concurrency exception, then what you need to write, you need to write the logic in such a way that it is going to execute this method one more time. Right, so retry pattern, I have already explained in my C# sessions. Retry pattern, just go ahead and
Yeah, I got.
learn the same concept. So there is, you need to implement retry. Because see, guys, remember, if you are learning something means you need to learn what is the problem, how to overcome the problem, what are the best solutions. Right? So the C sharp session, whatever I have provided, I have already covered retry pattern one, right? One pattern, retry pattern. So what is you can specify how many times the method should execute, right? This thing I will explain, right? So whatever I'm explaining retry pattern. So I will explain this thing in my web API sessions, right? For example, if I'm consuming some services, if I'm not getting the service response, I can write the logic to retry 2 times, 3 times. After the number of a time, right? If I'm not getting the response from the right server, then I can say I'm not getting the response, but I need to try at least 2 to 3 times, and each time I'm not going to repeatedly, I'm going to call immediately. I can give some right time slice between the first and second call, between the second and the third call. That is possible, right? So what I can tell at this point of time, try to learn what do you mean by retry pattern, how to rewrite this example using retry pattern. For reference, you can check my C sharp session. Clear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's well
clear, right?
explained. Yeah, it's well
Can you
explained.
show the
Yeah,
database?
Okay.
Can you show the database?
So just check retry pattern in C sharp. Right, the first link what I'm getting, this is my retry pattern. Right, so in this case, you can see how you can write the retry pattern logic. Complete example I have given, right? You can understand this thing. So you can specify how many times the method should execute, right? At what right interval you should execute, right? Everything is there, right? So coming to database, yes, this is my database. One of the transaction completed and one of the transaction failed. Right?
So, sir,
Instead of
it
storing wrong data,
S-
it is better to fail the transaction.
so sir, it failed in the save changes method, right? Because it didn't find the same row version. Can you go back to the code once? So it failed at line number 134.
Yes.
So, sir, if it is not getting, if where condition is not getting satisfied, will that go to line number 141?
Okay. So in that case, it will come to here, right? So in this case, we
Acha,
are
that is
writing,
concurrency exception. Okay.
right? So DB concurrency exception. If this is not a DB concurrency exception, other exception, you can write the general catch block, right? Something like this exception, right? That is also possible. So if it
So
is a
update.
concurrency exception, you can, and that is going to be handled by this. This one, other exception, this block is going to be handled. So if it is a concurrency exception, you need to write the logic, right? So that it will re-execute the same write transaction.
So, sir, whenever where condition fails, and if you are writing the catch block, my next line will go to the catch block.
Obviously, so in this case, what we are using, timestamp we are using, and if the issue
Right.
related to concurrency. So you have to remember a different thing. Why this exception I'm getting? So you know what do you mean by exception? If the exception occurred, then from that
Hmm.
statement it will go to the catch block or it will execute the next statement.
Catch block.
Then why you are asking from here? Will
No,
it come?
because yeah, because whenever we are writing stored procedures, if my where condition fails, the update statement, it will go to the next line. It will never go to the catch block.
You are completely
So
wrong. You are completely wrong. So whenever I'm writing any storage procedure, so the what exactly it is receiving. So storage procedure means that storage procedure execution is completed with failed. Failed means it should throw some exception. If you are not handling the exception, that is fine, but you should handle the exception. If you are getting some exception means 100% it will stop execution from that line and it will go to the next. Right, it will go to the catch block if you are writing any catch block, otherwise it will throw some unhandled exception. There is no chance that right after getting the exception it will execute the right next statement. This
no,
is
no,
impossible.
sir. What actually I'm trying to say now, suppose I'm update employee table where employee name is equal to ABC. Sorry, update employee table set last name is equal to XYZ, where last name is ABC something. But that doesn't exist in the table. My where condition is so that is not an exception. That is not an DB exception.
You are completely going in a different right concept altogether. So what do you mean by exception and what do you mean by data not exist? So whatever you told, that is not an exception. In that case, you will
Right.
execute the statement, but that statement doesn't update anything in the database. But
Correct.
currently, what I'm using the concurrency. That concurrency means, so in your case, did you use something called row version in the update statement?
No.
Row version means there's no concurrency issue. So in this case,
Okay.
this row version will come into the picture, and if there is a
Okay.
mismatch, right, for this row version number, then at that time
Okay.
it is going to throw concurrency issue. So you are
Okay.
completely right, going in
Okay.
a different logic altogether.
Okay.
So whatever you are saying,
Okay.
at that time you will not get any exception. For example, if I'm accessing one table, and if right, I'm accessing one table, and if that table doesn't have any data, if I'm writing context.student.toList, do you think that it is going to throw me any error, or it
No.
is going to be an empty list?
Empty list.
That is your case. So in your case, it is not going to throw any exception because you are not implementing concurrency. So when you are
Okay.
implementing concurrency, then concurrency column will come into the picture in the where condition whenever you are deleting and updating. In if there is a concurrency issue means what? Now when I read the record, and then when I'm going to update and delete the record, in between my read and my update operation, some other transaction update the data in the database. So that is concurrency, and that changes, right, is going to be handled by the framework.
Okay.
Clear?
Got it.
Clear, guys?
Sir, I have one doubt. Sir, in the scenario, when the user B is trying to book that product, it will not,
Sorry?
sorry, it will be an error, right? In the
I'm
scenario,
not getting.
when the,
I'm not getting.
yeah, in the scenario, when the user B is trying for booking, so it will cause an error.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? Definitely, it is throwing an exception, na? And it is better. See, instead of operating the
So
data,
in which
on
part the exception is throwing? In which?
obviously either in this statement it is going to throw, or in this statement it is going to throw. Anyone is going to be thrown. Right? For example, in this case, you can check user A is throwing error or user B is throwing error. You can also check. Okay, let me do one more thing. So better. So let me give this as a warning. Okay, let me completely write what I can say. Comment this one. Right? Which statement is going to throw error? That what I need to check. So total 7 products are there. Let me give a product of 2 and let me give a product of 3. So this is a multi-threaded application. Directly debugging is not possible, right? So that is the reason why I have written this output statement. You will not get the expected behavior. Final stock is correct. Why I'm getting this final stock is correct? Because I have run the application in a debugging mode. So there is no such issues, right? So what I'm going to do, right? Let me put this value as 10. Okay. Right. So final stock is correct. Error in which transaction? User B error. So user B error where we have written here, right? So that means here it is throwing the exception. That exception is handled by this catch block. Clear?
Yes.
Right? And what error it is throwing? The database operation was expected to affect 1 rows, but actually affected at 0 rows. That data may have been modified or deleted since the entities were loaded. So what exactly it's saying? In this case, this right update operation, what I'm sending to the database, I'm expecting it to update one record, that is this product one, but it is not updating any record. The reason might be that in between this read and this update operation, some other transaction update the data in the database. That is the reason why I'm throwing this error. So please handle this with care. Clear?
Yes, yes.
This is how, right, the concurrency in this case is executed. Handle the concurrency issue. Clear, guys?
I will not. You said we can't debug it. You said we can't debug.
Sorry?
What you said, I didn't hear you.
So
Did you say we
debugging is
can't
not,
debug what?
no, debugging how it will, like, this is a multi-threaded application, right? Which statement is going to execute first, which statement is going to execute
Oh,
next,
yeah,
right?
okay, yeah,
Right, clearly you cannot handle this thing. So there is a different way, right, is available to debug, right, the, right, what I can say, multi-threaded application. You guys know how to debug multi-threaded applications?
no.
Please try
I
to
have to
log in.
watch it in your video, the video and the C sharp pattern.
I have already explained this thing, right? Even I also forgot how to debug multi-threaded applications.
It should be in the C sharp video, I think, or not.
Yes, yes, how to debug
Okay,
multi-threaded applications. This is there.
okay.
Because right, I always remember, right, forgot the things. So that is the reason why you have to use Windows, debug Windows threads. Right? There are multiple thread executing your application code, which thread you want to debug, right? All these things you need to specify,
Okay.
right? Yeah, this is not that straightforward. You need to learn this thing. And even I forgot how to do these things. Okay, fine. So is that clear how
But
to
is multi-threading still used?
sorry?
Is multi-threading still used a lot? I thought it's not asynchronous more is used. Asynchronous. Do they still use multi-threading a lot?
No, no, no. Multi-threading is very rarely used nowadays. We are more frequently, right, using asynchronous programming.
Asynchronous, yeah. Okay.
So that's anyone having any more question, guys, related to this timestamp attribute? How many timestamp attribute we can apply per entity,
One.
and on which data type it can only be applied to?
Byte array.
Byte array. And this column will be used in the where clause whenever we are performing the update and delete operations. Clear? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Right. Next, what I'm going to discuss the last thing for today's session. And from tomorrow, we are going to start discussing, right, Fluent API, Fluent API validations, and many things we will discuss related to Fluent API. So concurrency check. This is same as timestamp. Concurrency check is same as timestamp, but what is the difference? The difference is in this case, this row version, it is applied at row level. Row version is applied on row level. Row level means doesn't matter which property I'm going to update, whether the name, price, stock quantity, one, all, any, right, anything. If I'm updating, then this property will come into the picture. Clear? Clear or not? Any
Yes.
of the property value is being updated. Then to manage that thing, right, this row version will come into the picture. Now, this concurrency check attribute, it is also another attribute to handle the concurrency. But in this case, this concurrency attribute can be applied to one or more properties of any data type. So unlike the timestamp attribute, which is applied to only right byte array type, again, that is only once per entity. So there is no such restriction on concurrency attribute. So it can be applied to any number of properties of any data type. And this whatever properties we are on whatever properties we are applying this concurrence check attribute, right? Then in that case, what will happen? It is going to manage the right. What I can say. Okay. So in this example, let us try to observe. So in this case, what I'm doing, I'm going to apply concurrency check, and also I'm going to apply the concurrency check on the, right, what I can say, this property, price and stock quantity. Clear? So in this case, what will happen? That the stock quantity, if I'm updating, right, if this stock quantity property value is being updated by multiple transactions, then that is going to be handled by this concurrency check property. If I'm updating the price, then that is going to be handled by this concurrency check. So this concurrency check attribute means what? It is property labeled. If I'm applying that attribute on a property, then it is going to handle the concurrency for that property, not for other all properties. Getting my point? So if I'm applying row version, then it is row level. Row level means any property value I update, right? That is going to be managed by the, right, what I can say, timestamp. But if I'm using concurrency, then the concurrency check is only going to be applicable, right, on the property where it is being applied. For example, stock quantity. So if I want to manage the stock quantity, then I can apply the stock quantity. I can apply the concurrency check attribute on stock quantity. If you want to manage the price, right, concurrency, then you can use this concurrency check on the price column. So with these changes, what will happen now? Right now, it is not going to create any extra. It is not going to create any additional column. It is not going to create any extra or additional column. And in this case, right, whatever the price value or stock quantity we provided, right? So this column value are going to be used in the where clause, unlike this row version. So currently, if I'm updating the product ID, right, if I'm updating the stock along with the product ID, it is using row version. With these changes, it is going to use this price and stock quantity in the where clause while it is updating the data. It is same. It is completely same as what I can say. What we learn with the timestamp. But in this case, we can apply multiple times. We can apply on multiple columns, and these columns will come into the right where condition clause whenever we are updating. And it is basically going to manage this thing, price and stock quantity. It is not going to manage because if I'm updating the name quantity, if I'm updating the name value, and this is not going to manage the, right, what I can say, concurrency. It is only going to manage the concurrency if I'm going to update the price and the stock quantity. Let us understand these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this migration folder. And here, guys, you can see the data type is going to be timestamp for this row version, right? So let me delete this one. Okay. Let me generate the migration file one more time. Update the database. Okay. Now, if you see, so this is my database. In the database, you will not find any difficulty. This is my product stock quantity. There is no additional column. Now the same example I'm going to do. So let me give this one, and here I'm giving this as information. Okay. The same example I'm taking into considerations. Okay. So let me delete this one. Okay. So user 2, 3, and this is 3, right? So now let us try to run the application. Right? So where is the update statement? This is select, this is select, this is select, that is fine. See, in this case, you can see while I'm updating the data, you can see it is using the price and the stock quantity. Right? It is using the price and the stock quantity or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? That means if I'm updating the stock quantity or if I'm updating the price, so these two things is going to be handled by the application. But if I'm going to update the name and other properties, then this will not be handled by this price and stock quantity. Why? Because it is explicitly specific to price and stock quantity column. So in this case, I'm updating the stock quantity. This is the reason why other transaction showing me this error. And you can say updated stock quantity is true, current stock quantity is 3, and which transaction is get failed? User B transaction. So user B transaction means this is user B, so only this transaction getting successful. And in this case, it is working as expected now. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do something else, right? So stock quantity, instead of stock quantity, I'm going to update the name. So name equals to, right, this is method 1 name, method 1 update. I'm giving the name, right? So to make sure, method 1 update, and in this case, it is going to be method 2 update, right? And here, what I'm going to do, whatever the existing name, with that I'm going to append this one. Whatever the existing name, with that I'm going to append this one. So with this one, so whatever the name, okay, so same example. I'm not changing anything. I'm just updating the name, and I'm trying to show you whether both these update operations are completed successfully or I'm getting any error. So I'm not updating the stock quantity. Instead, I'm updating the name. Okay, let me run the application. Am I get any error? Okay,
No.
now let us try to understand the database table. Laptop method to update. Yes or no? What is our expected output? Our expected output, method name, whatever laptop, method to update, and it should have the other thing, right? And whatever the product name, method 1 update. That means what? That means it silently override the other value or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
It means whatever the name, laptop method 1 update, then laptop method 1 update, method 2 update. That should be the actual value. But in this case, right, you can see whatever the method 1 updates, right, that is silently overridden by this method 2. Yes or no? In this case, did it
Yes.
handle the concurrency issue?
No.
No. Why? Because we have applied the concurrency column on the price and the stock quantity. If there is an issue related to price and stock quantity, then they are going to be handled by the concurrency check attribute. If the issue is related to other column, then they are not going to handle by the concurrency check. But if I'm using timestamp, then that is going to be handled by the right. If there is some concurrency issue related to name column, then also that is going to be handled by the timestamp. Timestamp means it is rollable. Any column, there is some concurrency issue, means that is going to be handled by the timestamp. Concurrency check means only particular to that column where it is applied. If there is some issue in that column, then only it will handle the concurrency issue. Other column, they are not going to handle. Clear? So concurrence, if someone asks you what is the difference between timestamp and a concurrency check, how they are going to handle the concurrency issue, you have to tell. Timestamp 1, right, we can apply the timestamp attribute to a single property in an entity, that is to a byte array. It is going to create an additional column in the database, and that column will come into the picture whenever we are updating and deleting any column values, and this is going to be used in the where class. And if there is some conflict, then it is going to throw some concurrency issue. Coming to concurrency check, we can apply on multiple properties of an entity. That properties can be of any data type, and right, there is no additional column in the database. And whenever we are updating the data, then this column will come into the picture, and it is only going to handle the concurrency issues on which property these columns are applied. Other properties concurrency issues are not going to be handled by the concurrency check attribute. Clear?
Yeah.
Sir, name should be laptop 1, method 1, method 2.
Sorry.
In the database, the name should be Because first time my name will be updated as laptop method 1 update.
Yes.
And then laptop method 1 update will be updated with method 2 update, right?
In this case, concurrency is not there, na. So both product. So in this case, when I read the data, what is the name property value at
Okay.
this point?
So it was actual data,
This is laptop.
laptop. Mm.
In this case, it becomes what? Laptop method 1,
Mm.
right? This will become laptop method 1.
Mm.
So when I read this data, I read the value, name property value as laptop. In this time, when I read the value, I also read the value as laptop. So in this case, he is updating the product name as laptop method 1. And in this case, he is updating the value as laptop method 2. So whatever
Okay.
updation
So sir,
is done
you
by
have
method
given
1,
got
this
your
is going
point.
to override by this method 1 silently.
Mhm.
So
So
this
you
is the
have given thread.
conclusion.
Yeah, you have given thread dot sleep on top. If we are suppose
So
suppose
thread
there may
is what I want to make sure, right? I want to
to
ensure that one, right? Once that is,
mm,
why I'm using this thread dot sleep to make sure both are going to run parallelly. I
mm,
don't want that method 1 execution completed, then method 2 execution start. That is what I don't
mm,
want. So I want method 1 execution start, and before completing method 1 execution, I want to make sure method 2 execution should start. That is the reason why
mhm.
I have applied this
Okay.
sleep statement.
Mhm.
You know what is the use of
Otherwise, yeah, I know that thing. So, but there may be a chance my thread 1 updated my name property and then my thread 2 started. That too can happen, right?
that can happen. In that case, you will not get any issue.
Yeah.
If you both the threads. So what is important before updating the data? If you both read the data and if both entity having the same data, then you will face the problem.
Yeah.
But for example, once this method execution completed, after updating the data, right? If I'm reading the data, then I don't have any issue,
No, any issue, right?
right? Clear?
Yes.
Anyone having any question, guys?
Sir, is there any method that we can count how many times this timestamp has changed?
How many time? Sorry, what is your question?
Timestamp has changed how many times?
How many times the time step has changed means what? I'm
Means
not getting what exactly.
he's trying to ask how can we check how many times my record has been updated? Like when we are using the timestamp column. So
So in
can we
that
have
case, you
any
need to say, in that case, you can use some kind of a auditing column. You need to write some kind of a trigger. Every time there is some changes to your original data, you want to make that old data inserted into your history, right? Or you can say audit table, and you can check the audit table when and who and how the data is changed. You know what is the use of audit table? What is the use of a trigger concept?
Yeah.
So have you ever used, see, knowing is one thing, but did you use a trigger concept in any of your database to track the changes or modification or deletion happen to your entities or data?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is what you can use, right?
Um,
Clear,
sir,
guys?
which one is mostly used? Concurrency check or timestamp?
So that is the
Like,
next question. That should be the interview question, na? Right? So you just tell me, guys, scope. So the concurrency check is property level or row level?
property.
Property
Property
level.
level. And concurrency control, it only protect the specific fields or it protect all the field concurrency check?
Specific.
And the timestamp is completely or entire row, right?
Completely. Entire row.
Okay, data type. Concurrency can be applied to any data type or it is specific to byte array.
Any
Hmm? Guys, I'm
data
not
type.
going to explain this thing, guys. We already discussed. Data type for concurrency check, is there any specific limitation for data type?
No.
No, no,
No.
no.
For timestamp, it is specific to
Byte error.
Byte error.
right? Use case. If when only particular fields are critical to concurrency. For example, if you are creating this table and your main intents are, right, is to manage this particular column, right? I don't want to care about name, price, and product ID, and I know these columns are not going to be changed that frequently, and this is the column which is going to be used throughout the system. So if only specific columns are going to be right, you want to manage that concurrency for specific columns, then you need to go with a concurrency check. If you want to manage the concurrency for all the columns, then in that case, right, all the columns or many columns you can consider, then in that case, what is the best solution? Best solution is timestamp. Clear or not? Yes or no? So in this case, if I apply this concurrency check on this stock quantity, means this stock quantity concurrency handle is going to be handled by this concurrency check attribute. It is not going to handle name and price. But what is your requirement? I want to handle the price rate concurrency issue. I want to handle the name concurrency issue. I want to handle the stock quantity concurrency issue. Then if that is your requirement, then all the entire row you want to handle, then in that case you need to use the timestamp, right? Automatic
Yes.
handle require manual marking of each relevant property. Each property you need to decorate with a concurrency check. In this case, you have to create one right timestamp column, which is going to automatically handle. Complexity easier for simple scenario involving specific field. More for robust complex scenario where row level protection is needed. So if you want to write what I can say, handle some specific fields of an entity, right? That means the complexity is not that high. Then in that case, right, you can go with a concurrency check and decorate that property or properties which you want to handle the right concurrency issue. But for most of the robust complex scenario, many properties, all the properties, right, I want to handle the concurrency issue. Then in that scenario, right, you can go with this timestamp. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So performance differences, it is fast for small updates as it only checks changes on specific properties. Right? For example, if you are having a table and if you mark one or two, three columns are concurrency check, this is going to be give you fast updates, right? But if you mark multiple fields, there could be increased on performance over it, right? Right. For example, it is see the point that what you need to remember. So if I'm applying this concurrency check on stock quantity, price, name, all these properties, then in that case, in the where clause, it is going to use the stock price and where columns or not. Means it is also going to check the condition. All these three columns are not.
Yes.
Checking the condition in a single column will take more time, or checking the condition on multiple columns will take more time.
Multiple column.
That is the performance overhead is associated with the concurrency issues if you are applying this on multiple columns. If only few fields are critical fields are there. For example, in this case, my stock quantity is more critical. I don't care about all these things. You need to use right a timestamp. And in this case, you need to use right what I can say concurrency check. Maybe you might have one question, sir. Even though if I'm having this single property, I can write the stock timestamp and that is also going to be work for my case. So why should I use concurrency check? So in situations like this, I generally prefer you guys to use concurrency check because if I'm going with a timestamp, it is going to create an additional column. Did it going to take some additional space in the database?
Yes.
Yes.
Timestamp means additional column. Additional column means additional data. Additional data means additional space. Additional space means what additional amount you have to pay. So that is the downside of timestamp. And that is the benefit of a concurrence. For concurrence check, I don't need to create any additional column. So whatever timestamp is doing, that is also I'm going to achieve using concurrency check. But if I'm going to apply the concurrency check on multiple columns, then my performance is going to be degraded. So whatever I'm achieving using a single column timestamp, that is better than applying this concurrency check on multiple columns. So both are you need to take into consideration. Then you need to decide, right, whether I need to go with the concurrency check or whether I need to go with the timestamp. You cannot blindly say that one is going to give you better performance than other. So it's completely based on the scenario. What is your requirement, right? What you want to achieve? Based on that only you need to decide whether I need to go with concurrency check or whether I need to go with the timestamp. Clear? Clear or not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so this is all about our data annotations. And I hope you have enjoyed data annotations and how to use data annotations with the entity framework 4. And from tomorrow we are going to start Fluent API. So how we can do entity configuration, property configuration, right? Configuration global level, right? Many additional configurations are there. And Fluent API completed, then we'll start discussing the advanced concept like shadow properties, like what I can say, uh, inheritance strategies with entity framework core. Right, many things are there which we will discuss one by right. Anyone having any question, they can ask.
So just one question. In the syllabus, you have mentioned some real-time applications using ASP.NET Core. So that
We'll discuss. Don't worry, we'll discuss
no, no,
real time
no, no, no.
application.
What I'm trying to ask now, will that be covered at the end of the course, or like
No,
we will
not
complete
at the end
with?
of the not at the end of the course, right? So whenever I'm going to start MVC and Web API, at that time I'm going to take real-time examples and explain. But till now, right, whatever examples I have provided in the entity framework code, do you think that these are not real-time?
No, no, sir. I'm not asking that part. I just wanted to ask, means Web API will be started before. That's what I just wanted to know.
I'm definitely
That's
I'm
it.
going to,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
don't worry, right. So what I'm saying, I'm not going to take any, right. What I can say, single simple example. Examples, the complexity is definitely going to be very high, right. So that is what I'm going to discuss, right. Don't worry about the real time application. I mentioned means I am going to cover those things. Clear?
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever I have provided, definitely I'm going to cover them using real-time applications. So for some real-time application, let me show you. So something similar to this one I'm going to develop. Suppose one employee management system is going to be there. So how you can manage these things? So here you can create a new employee, you can filter the employee, you can sort the employee, right? You can just view the details, you can update, delete, you can go to the previous, next, first, last buttons, right? All these things we are going to discuss. So how you can create employee. So these are the basic information, right? What you can do. Once you create the employee, what should be the success page looks like, right? So this is, right? So this is the so example similar to this we are going to develop, right?
Yes.
Right, so this is similar. For example, right, model pointing. Right, for example, we are going to develop something similar to this one. So you created the right Gmail account, right? So you know how the Gmail account is, the implementation is provided.
No.
Right. Step one, you will provide your first name and last name. You can also check right in the Gmail. In the step two, you need to provide your month, date, year, and you have to select your gender. In the step three, you need to create your own email address or the suggestions which is provided by Gmail based on your first name and last name, right? And then you need to provide a strong password. Here you can see password, confirm password, check on checkbox will be there. Here you need to provide your mobile number based on the country code. The mobile number validation will be there, right? Then you need to provide your OTP, and then you need to provide your optional recovery email address. You need to review your information. Then you need to accept the terms and license. Then it is going to create your account. So this kind of applications we are going to manage. We are going to create and right. We are going to develop. For example, right. Some library management system is there. Right? So, for example, you know how to create a book, whether this book is available or not. If it is taken by someone else, then how it is going to manage, how to return the book. Right? All these things we are going to discuss. For example, we'll discuss this block management, CMS panel. You know how to manage the CMS panel. Right? So CMS panel, the screenshot I have not provided here, but that completely right. See, have you ever heard anyone CK editor? Guys,
Which
did anyone
editor?
heard CK editor?
Yeah, we
No.
have used.
You use, right? For the same as panel, right? Right. So all these things I'm going to discuss: how to integrate CK editor, how to provide the beautiful page, right, where you can set the right title, URL, keyword, right, meta description. All these things how you can provide. How you can provide the slug URL. Everything I'm going to discuss, right? So don't worry, right? For example, if you look at this, right, what I can say, right? So in Web API. Right, so we'll discuss how to develop completely hotel booking application, right, starting from. So this application I'm going to use Idioda, right. So I'm going to show you how to develop application using both, right, what I can say, entity framework or as well as Idioda. So all these things we are going to discuss, right. For example, I'm going to design a hotel booking application. For hotel booking application, what are the different what I can say entity or database I need to create. I need to create a user roles, user country state, room types, rooms, amenities, room amenities, guest reservation, payment batches, payment cancellation, refund method, feedback, right? All these tables I'm going to take and I'm going to develop the database first. And once the database is created, how you can create the storage procedures, how you can consume the storage procedure from our application, right? All these things are going to be there, right? Everything, right? I'm going to discuss. So for now, you just keep focus on what I can say. So this, see, you can see the database structure is going to be something like this. Right? So this kind of examples are applications, right? That what I'm going to discuss. And I can give you guarantee, right? At the end of this session, right? Any type of project comes on your way, you can easily integrate. You can easily start developing. You can easily decide, right, what should be the entities, what should be the relationship between the entities, how to define the entities, what is the best way to write the code, what is the right performance oriented code, what do you mean by secured code, right? How to do unit testing, how you can write unit testing code, right? How you can write right, every concept what is required, right, for real time application I'm going to cover, right? So we are just starting the basic concept. Basic concept means these are the concept which we are going to use very frequently. Almost all the applications what we are going to discuss, right? Apart from that hotel management application, all other application I'm going to use entity framework code, right? So that is the reason
Sir,
why.
did you?
Sorry,
No, sir, you can
sorry.
continue after that. Sir, did you
Sorry.
cover the design patterns?
See, this is not a design pattern session, man. This is ASP.NET Core. Design pattern is not part of the syllabus, right? That is the reason why I have provided the
Then
syllabus
C
from.
sharp, C sharp.
It is already I have given access to my C sharp session, right? So did
Oh,
anyone watch my
C
design
sharp.
pattern session?
Yeah.
Design button already, right? All the gang of 23 design button. I have not missed a single design button. I have explained all the 23 design buttons, and I have provided that right access to you guys. And I hope you have not watched those sessions.
Yeah. Also, the solid principle is also there.
Yes, design patterns are there, solid principle are there, right? Event delegate anonymous methods are there, collection and concurrent collections are there, asynchronous programming, parallel programming, multi-threadings are there, right? Every concept, right? Whichever are required, right, for developing robust applications. And this, so whatever I'm discussing, one try pattern, retry pattern, all these things are there, right? But what is the important thing, right? What you guys are lack in Shisha. That is what I can understand. Because these are the things I suppose not to explain. Right? Because I assume you guys are a working professional. Fresher I can understand. Student I can understand. But as a working professional, if you don't know how to handle concurrency, as a right experienced person, if you don't know right how to write robust code, means you are lacking in your C sharp knowledge. Right? Because C sharp is more important, and this is our ASP.NET Core sessions. And even I know you guys are very right. So even this entity framework core is part of C sharp, not ASP.NET Core. But even I understand, yes, right? Many people are having many questions related to entity framework code. What they understand, what other institutions are providing, only the database CRUD operation. But guys, remember, database CRUD operation is only 5% of entity framework code. Only 5% is the database, right? What I can say, CRUD. Rest of the things, managing the database, creating the entities, managing the relationship, what are the different types of a configuration we can do, how we can do this thing is very, very important, right? So that is what you need to understand, right? Now, after today's session, right, what I can say, right, you can understand, right, you know now how to generate the identity column, how the identity column work, how the computed column work, how we can set some kind of default values, right? What is how to use, right, timestamp, how to use concurrency. So these are the things we should know. But this is not part of our database CRUD operation. But yes, if we know, it is good for us. Clear? Right? So why I'm taking more time, right? Because I know this is the base. Once your database part is clear, once you have very good understanding about the database and their relationship, your 50% work is done. If you design the database, if you understand the database structure very frequently, right, you can consider 50% work of your is done. From tomorrow, we are going to start ASP.NET Core Identity in the morning session. If anyone interested, right, to attend the ASP.NET Core Identity concept, please ping me. I will allow you to attend the morning session. Even in your batch also, I'm going to discuss ASP.NET Core Identity. But if anyone having some basic knowledge of ASP.NET Core Web API, ASP.NET Core MVC, SQL Server Database with Entity Framework Core, they can join the session. Because I don't know, right? I want you guys to, right, capture as much as possible. If you attend the morning session, again, when I'm going to discuss identity on your session, you will be very, right? You will be feel very happy to understand the concept. Because learning the same thing twice means it will help you more.
Till 6:30, yeah? 6:30 a.m.
Yes, yes. The morning batch is 6:30.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Again, the design pattern minimum 10 to 15, sorry, identity I will take minimum 10 to 12 sessions. I'm going to explain, right? I'm going to explain the database, right, one by one, right? For example, so this is the database, right? Before starting the session, I just do the demo, right? So this is the identity database. So I'm going to explain what is the use of each column, what this column is going to store, what is this column is going to store, what is the relationship between the columns, right? How this database is going to be created, what data we are going to store, what is the difference between name and normalized name. And here you can see this concurrency stuff, right? Concurrency term. So this is nothing but you can see one type of a concurrency, right, column, right, which is going to handle the concurrency issues. Right? So this is the things, right? Everything, right? I'm going to discuss what is the use of a username, how the password hash is going to be implemented, what do you mean by security hash column, right? All these things we are going to discuss, right? So if anyone interested to attend the session, please ping me. I will give you access to the session. I'm not going to provide the recorded session to you guys. Recorded session only for those batch students. But if you are interested to attend the live session, I can allow. And of course,
Yes, sir. I want.
in your batch, I definitely am going to cover this thing also, identity.
Sir, I want
But
join this.
yeah, so for that purpose, you should know ASP.NET Core Web API, ASP.NET Core MVC, Entity Framework Core, and SQL Server database knowledge. If you know this thing, let me know. I can allow you. Otherwise, right, it will be difficult for you to understand the concept. Right? Those who are interested, please ping me in Telegram. Right? I will share the link
Okay,
to
sir.
attend the session from tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Anyone having any more question, guys?
No, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.